I am quickly gonna test my audio because last time I was streaming for quite a while and then turns out I didn't have audio, so I just want to make sure that I have audio. Let's see. Okay, I do have audio. But for some reason it seems to be in mono. But that's fine. Doesn't really prevent me from streaming, so let's get started. Hi everyone. So this is another live video because again I've been editing a lot and I just want to get this fluidly, and let's do this. So the topic of today is the 5 things that I learned from life coaching from my experience as a client. So I'm a coach right now, but prior to this becoming a coach, I was a client, and so I think I think I need to talk about the benefits of life coaching because I advocate for it. It's my profession, and if I didn't tell you what it did for me, then I would be doing you a disservice. So the benefits are kind of going to intertwine with each other, but I still wanted to call them out separately, and hopefully it'll make more sense as I talk more. But the first really big benefit that I saw from life coaching is it's escaping the shadow of my parents. And what I mean by that is when I was living life unconsciously and unaware of my thoughts, a lot of the beliefs that I had about the world were not really authentically mine. It was very much like a replication of what my parents believed. And so, sharing the same values as your parents, I think that's not really a big problem by itself. But when your entire worldview and your perspective depends on being identical to your parents, I think that's when the problems start to happen, because you are an individual and you have a different life circumstance compared to your parents. And as you grow older and older, you're gonna discover more of your individuality. And when you notice that your individuality is gonna diverge from your established notion of how you should live, basically your life view of your parents, then you start feeling bad about being yourself. And that's a horrible feeling, that you can't really accept yourself. And that's inspires a lot of self-hatred, a lot of self-pitying. And I think coaching is the one that really made me realize a lot of my views around people, around what ethics, around what is good and bad. Those kind of judgments I really inherited from my parents. And so, I talked about this in one of my short videos, but when I turned 18, I really wanted to smoke. But it was like I had a lot of guilt about smoking because it's supposed to be a bad thing, and I like a lot of other Asian people, I was really craving my parents' approval for everything. So when I had this desire to try smoking, because I'm an adult, right? Like every adult wants to try new stuff with their newly acquired legal rights to do stuff, but expressing my adult self was difficult and emotionally hard because it conflicted with my parents' worldview. And that's like a light example. And the other one is when I was helping my parents with their business, and my parents had their way of doing business, right? So my dad is a hypnotherapist in Korea, and he operates the clinic, or the therapy center. And when I think because I was educated in the United States, and when I look at clients who are like really rude and don't really, want to be better, and they just waste my dad's time and then demand a refund because, like people do that for multiple reasons. I get angry and, I want to, tell them, no, don't give them a refund because they signed the contract, which is a very, like, American thing to do. And, so they knew what they were going in for, but they can't just demand a refund because they didn't get hypnotized, right? Because, then why sign the waiver at all? So, but then my parents would be like, no, that's not the way to live because this is Korea and you have values around, you have to kind of give in to get what you want. And it's just like, it made me really frustrated, and that really affects my relationship with my parents when it could have been more congruent. And so there's so much more to this story, but like graduating and breaking out of the shell that your parents provided for you, that they sheltered you in until you reached your adulthood, and really being born again. I think that's an experience that I wouldn't have been able to achieve without life coaching. And the second one is stopping judgments of other people. So I talk about this a lot, especially when I talk about like teaching videos, but I had a really bad case of judging people. So, when I have a meeting with a coworker, and then I think that coworker sucks at programming, and they're at lunch with me and they're eating, and then they would be talking about their just like life, and in my head, I'm like not even listening to them. I'm just eating my food, and I'm just like, why is this guy spending so much time not learning more about programming when he sucks so much? This is like a real thought I've had for a really long time. And if they're talking about, all the things that they did with their kids, and and I was like, and in the back of my mind, I'm thinking like, wow, this guy's really spoiling their kids. And this basically, like, I would meet someone when I'm walking my dogs, and they would just like wave hi, and I would be like, why is that guy so, what is he feeling so good about? Like, why is he so friendly? And it was really bad. It was basically like an allergic reaction to everybody I meet, and that made interactions really difficult. But the problem is, back at those times, I was trying to be, I was trying to work up the corporate ladder. I wanted to be promoted. I wanted to be director of my group. And I wanted to be, like a VP of whatever, like senior VP of blah, 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 blah. So, because those are my career aspirations, networking is going to be probably really important for those things, right? And, how you conduct yourself at interviews, that's also going to impact those kind of decisions. But even during interviews, even when I'm meeting my manager's manager, even when I'm meeting the VP of my group, I'm still having that kind of judgment inside. And I'm thinking, wow, you're a VP, but you suck so much. Wow, you're a director, but you suck so much. Like, these are all thoughts that I had in my head. And, like, if one of the SVPs or directors might be watching this, but then, you can't really control how other people think, right? And it's it's nothing personal against them. It's just the global tendency I had towards everybody. And so when I discussed this with my coach, and this turned out to be because I had a really inflated sense of I need to be on the right side of things. And I had this really big sense of I determine what is right and wrong. And so that's a big misconception, right? Because my thoughts are just my thoughts and my preferences. And it's just how I conduct life, but it doesn't necessarily mean that the people who don't abide by my views are bad. And another favorite example of mine, like, I like Pepsi more than I like Coke. But that doesn't mean that Pepsi is objectively better than Coke. Because, like, what is even objectively good or bad? That notion just doesn't exist. But I've been stuck so long in that worldview of everybody else sucks because they don't conform to my worldviews. And so getting rid of that has been a really liberating feeling, because now I can interact with people face value. And I like games. So one of the methods I used to overcome this with my coach was, I treat everybody like an NPC in an RPG game. And how when you play Final Fantasy or like Dragon Quest, you talk to the villagers and then they give you kind of the hints to the storyline, and they give you the background information on how the society was prior to like this dragon taking over the world or whatever. So I started treating people like, hey, what's going on with you? And then they tell me, and I was like, yeah, this is interesting, because that they're giving me backstory for this really cool game. And that's how it initially started, and it really made a big, significant difference in how I treat people. And yeah, again, I don't think I would have been able to do it if I didn't have life coaching. And the third one is having my own back and forgiving myself. So I had an inflated sense of what's wrong and right? But because I'm not like a machine, I do things that I think are pretty crappy. And I held on to those notions for a really long time. So for example, I'm like 30 something, I'm 35. But I still think about my college roommate, because I feel like I've been a bad roommate to that guy. And I feel bad for this one guy I leased my apartment to, and he was my friend. And because when I moved out, I was supposed to, completely move out and keep all the, trash out and, make the place spot free. But then, I just piled up a bunch of trash in the living room, and I was like, oh yeah, can you take care of that for me? So like, I thought that was really crappy of me. So it's been like over 10 years, but I keep recollecting that in my head. And then, in high school, there was a group of friends, but then, like they did like shady stuff. But, I had to be a tattletale because of my beliefs about what is right and wrong. And then, so basically I ratted a whole group of friends out for doing like shady shit. And so I did that because out of self-righteousness, but then it doesn't feel good that I ratted out a bunch of friends when I was in high school, right? But this is like back in high school. It's a really long time ago, but then I would still hold on to that memory to just continue assigning blame to myself. And forgiving myself is basically, like letting go of the thought that, I'm to be blamed. Go. It's just like letting go of a hot object. Like, I just let that go. And there's a lot of thoughts about me. There's a lot of thoughts that say I'm a bad person because of this. But then what coaching allows you to do is just like acknowledge that you're not a perfect human, and acknowledge that when you make a mistake, you can own up to it, because you're not constantly looking for external factors, right? I did that because blah, 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 blah. I had no choice but to do that because the world was like this. Through coaching, I learned how to be responsible for my decisions. I learned how to be responsible for, my actions. And so that allows me to actually be responsible for the things that I did in the past. And then, okay, I made a mental note that what I did was crappy and bad. But now, that doesn't serve me anymore, and therefore I'm just gonna let it go. And I think that's a really another very cool thing that I learned. To be judgment free from yourself, not judging other people, not judging yourself, is a very, very big weight off of your shoulders. And number 4 is unshaming and accepting my own body. So if you notice, when you're looking at my face, I have facial asymmetry. My jaw is in it, and this is after one surgery. So my jaw is like, it's supposed to be this, well, like normal people's jaws are like perfectly aligned, but mine was protruded forward and it was angled like this. So this has been a really big kind of a pet peeve of mine when I look at myself in the mirror. And when you notice, pictures of me from old times ago, like I always cover my mouth or I make exaggerated faces so that people won't really notice the facial asymmetry. But then, I am what I'm born with, and just because I think my facial asymmetry is weird, that doesn't really mean that it's actually weird, right? So it's just like the Pepsi and Coke argument. I like Pepsi more than I like Coke. That doesn't really have anything to do with the actual value of Pepsi and and the Coke. And so my face is just how it is. Just like how this poster, Here Comes the Sun, is just how that is. It's just being. It's just existing. My face is just here as a result of my parents' DNA combining, and then, cellular mitosis and bones growing and, surgical blah blah blah. It's just what it is. And I can either believe that this is weird and that I shouldn't show my face and that I should be ashamed of it because it's not perfect, or I can just accept that, hey, it's just part of me and I own it and move on from it. And this applies to so many different things, right? So your body is just the way your body is. I'm 160 pounds. That's just how much I weigh in terms of mass. I can always believe that's not enough, and I can try to eat and then I'll never feel fulfilled. Or I can also believe that I'm always fat. But the truth of the matter is, I am just my weight, right? And so letting go of the notions that my face, my weight, my looks aren't perfect, that's what actually allowed me to, which is gonna tie to the next point. I'm showing up as myself because I'm not really ashamed of myself. Yeah, some people can say I'm ugly. Some people can say that my facial asymmetry is really hard to look at. But that's their opinion. And that has nothing to do with the absolute value of my face. And it has nothing to do with the absolute value of how my worth is. And so this goes to the last point. Now I have my own business and my own YouTube channel. And that's something that entrepreneurship has been a really big dream of mine since I had grad school. So in grad school I had entrepreneurship class. And it was supposed to be a computer science, engineering driven thing, but project ended and I graduated out of grad school. But I always wondered oh man, what would entrepreneurship feel like? But it always stopped because of the fear of failure and the fear of well, not really a fear, but I have nothing really to provide. I have nothing to give to people. And but in the back of my mind, I was always curious of what would entrepreneurship feel like? What would it be like to have your own business? What would it be like to make money just by yourself without a paycheck? And that feeling, I was always curious, but so that's one reason to go for entrepreneurship. But then there were so many reasons against entrepreneurship that I shouldn't do it. Because I'm gonna fail, because I have no value, because I'm ugly. And because I can't hire people because I hate everybody, and I can't really work on my business because I hate myself. So coaching allowed me to get over all the preconceived notions about the failure. So yeah, what if I do fail? I mean, I just learned how to not conduct business well, and what if I don't get any clients? Doesn't matter, because I can still have a YouTube channel like this and continue talking about the importance, and I can give the people free help when they need it. And I have 51 subscribers right now, and that's 51 people who I'm helping with my videos. And I have 17 followers on Reddit. That means I have at least 17 people who think my content is worth reading and worth watching. So I wouldn't have been able to put myself here if I didn't really have life coaching and I didn't experience it as a client. And so that's the top 5 things that I picked up from life coaching as a client. And so this is kind of a retrospect and comparing my current self, where I'm just my authentic self and I'm conducting business as my authentic self, and I'm comparing this to where I was before, where I hated myself, where I hated everyone else, where I hated my body, and I was living under like a puppet from my parents' expectations and their like invisible approval, right? And so the point of this video is, I want you to, if you're watching this, I want you to try and explore what your authentic life would be like. What would you be doing if you didn't have all these like external pressures and the things that you wish you could have? Like, let's say you had all the things that you wish you could have. What would you be doing with your life? How much money would you have? And how many houses would you have? Where would your houses be? Where would you go on vacations? What would you do in vacations? Would you rent a yacht? Or would you rent a whole like ski resort and just ski or snowboard? Or would you own a private beach and then just go surfing every day? Those are things that you could imagine in order to make them come true. And because it's possible, as long as you imagine it and then you believe it and you continuously apply actions to get closer to that goal. And there's lots of ways to do it. There's lots of education on to do it, but if you really want personalized help in getting to that state, life coaching is going to be a really great option for you. Alright, so that's about all the things that I wanted to talk about. I wanted to talk about Chainsaw Man, but I'll talk about that in a separate video because my eyes are feeling a little bit dry right now. So if you're watching this, thank you so much. Your viewership and your support means a lot to me, and I'll see you in the next video.